Today, we're going to discuss ghosts and how to use them most effectively for your fantasy role-playing games. Within the bestiary of every role-playing game, regardless of game mechanics or genre, you will typically find supernatural entities in one form or another that may be defined as the soul or spirit of a formerly deceased individual. In the Dungeons & Dragons game, throughout its many editions, in addition to the entry for Ghost, we have a whole range of undead that are really just ghosts with different names and power levels. This includes apparitions, banshee, haunts, poltergeist, specters, will-o-wisps, and though it temporarily possesses a physical body, the Revenant may also fit loosely into this category since it is still a vengeful spirit. Not to be confused with ghostly apparitions, though often used in the same context, are creatures of darkness, such as the nightmare, wraith, and shadow. In the lingo used by modern-day paranormal investigators, these typically refer to manifestations of shadow creatures, often associated with the dream world, shadow realm, or negative material plane. I'll discuss those in a separate video when we look at the night hag. An 18th century English writer, Dr. Samuel Johnson, observed that, talking of ghosts, isn't it wonderful that 5,000 years have now elapsed since the creation of the world, and still it is undecided whether or not there have been any instance of the spirit of any person appearing after death. All argument is against it, but all belief is for it. The good doctor believed the world was only 5,000 years old, so I'm not sure how much we can trust his opinion on anything. However, he does have a point. Why do so many people believe in ghosts when there's absolutely no scientific proof to support that belief? Real-world lore. The word ghost originates from the Anglo-Saxon gast, which simply means breath or spirit. But the idea of ghosts, a belief in the existence of such things, is older than the earliest human records. This belief is found spread around the globe from every culture. There is even evidence from the Neolithic age that those earliest humans ceremoniously buried their dead to prevent the spirits of the deceased from returning to haunt the living. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, one of the disciples saw Jesus walking on water, and the passage reads, "While Jesus' disciples were talking about what had happened, Jesus appeared and greeted them. They were frightened and terrified because they thought they were seeing a ghost." And King Saul, when he visits the witch of Endor to speak to the prophet Samuel, who was dead, the story appears to affirm that it is possible, though forbidden, for humans to summon the spirit of the dead through magic. In 2500 BCE, the Assyrians, living in territory which is now Iraq and Turkey, believed ghosts could be good or evil, that evil spirits were those who had not been given proper burials. The ancient Greeks and Romans called good spirits lares, and those who had lived wicked lives lemures and larvae. The Odyssey, based on real events which occurred sometime around 1250 BCE, was written by the Greek poet Homer, and it includes multiple encounters with ghosts by its hero Odysseus. Pliny the Elder, who died in 79 AD, was a Roman author and philosopher who recorded a Greek story in which a ghost haunted a home in Athens. That ghost story even included the spooky Scooby-Doo style rattling of chains that you might think of today. The Chinese belief in ghosts is ancient and influenced by the honoring of their ancestors and belief they influence their lives. That failure to honor them creates hungry ghosts, which will torment them. Ancient Chinese customs include a ghost festival, which is observed on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month. They believe this is when the veil between our worlds is thinnest and the dead may cross over. The Chinese Ghost Festival is much like the Day of the Dead observed in Latin American countries on November 1st or 2nd, or the Celtic Samhain, from which our modern-day Halloween holiday originates. In the folklore of numerous Western cultures, including the United States and much of Europe, a ghost is the non-corporeal essence of one who has died. They still exist, but without a physical body. Despite their lack of physical form, a ghost is sometimes said to possess the ability to move objects, to create noises audible to the living, and to even interfere with electrical devices such as lights, televisions, and radios. In some stories, a ghost may appear as a shadowy presence, as a translucent mist, a small hovering ball of dimly glowing light, or as a near-invisible doppelganger of the individual as they appeared in life. And just a friendly FYI, if we're really bound to appear as we did at the moment of our death, I suggest that we all take extra precautions when sitting on the toilet. Something I only recently learned has a name among EMTs called brownout. Game lore. Beliefs about ghosts and ghostly activity need not be mere superstitions in our fantasy role-playing games. You can bring every fear, anxiety, and nightmare into reality within our games. A ghost can be the foundation for an amazing adventure or even an entire campaign. There are just so many creatures in our fantasy role-playing games that could be considered ghosts beyond those labeled as such. I mentioned several of those at the start of this video. In your own games, it might be fun to look at adopting some real-world myths and superstitions about ghosts, but make them real. For example, during the Victorian era, a deceased person would be carried from their home feet first, so they would not look back and call another member of the household to follow them, a type of curse assuring more deaths in the household. Also common in the Victorian era, to prevent the deceased from getting trapped in a mirror, the glass was covered until after the funeral. Likewise, it was considered bad luck to see a reflection in a mirror at the home of a recently deceased person. The Victorians had many such superstitions around death, and creating a few of your own for your own game world can help make your fantasy world feel more real for your players. For 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, one of the most authoritative official publications regarding ghosts is the Ravenloft supplement called Van Richten's Guide to Ghosts. This 96-page book is still so full of useful information for any fantasy role-playing game. The author divides ghosts into categories, defined by magnitudes of power, ranking them from 1st to 5th magnitudes. The 1st magnitudes are the least powerful and most common, while the 5th magnitude are the most powerful and, thankfully, extremely rare. In real-world paranormal superstitions, the 1st magnitude might be labeled as residual hauntings. That is an unintelligent, unaware type of haunting that is little more than an echo or psychic impression left on a place or object. These types of hauntings are not capable of interacting with the living other than to produce some minor and subtle visual or audible effect. Less common would be some minor olfactory sensation, such as a favored perfume or foul smell, depending on the spirit's disposition. Examples might be a faint whispered voice, or the sound of footsteps across the floor that the deceased individual once frequented. For example, one of the king's guards may have been so loyal and determined in life that he left a faint residual psychic impression. Now, many years after his death, in the dead of night, when no other sound is interrupting the solitude, the living still claim to hear the boots pacing the great hall outside the king's royal chamber. As Van Richten's Guide to Ghosts tells us, the 5th magnitude are so powerful their spirit may require very special means to defeat it, perhaps an entire quest to fulfill a specific set of tasks, and that's where my players are right now. For several months of real game time, they've been trapped in an extra-dimensional prison within the Ravenloft setting, where a ghost has trapped them in a huge haunted castle, and the only way they may return to their world of origin is to free the ghost of the curse which has trapped it. Game Master Tips. Using ghosts effectively in our tabletop fantasy role-playing games can create a spine-tingling and immersive experience for our players. To keep them fascinated and spooked, it's essential to draw inspiration from the most important themes in real-world ghost stories throughout human history and adapt them for our games. In our real-world ghost stories, they often serve a functional purpose beyond just an entertaining tale. These may serve as a warning or other moral lesson. In horror-themed games, slow building tension can be an effective tool to scare your players. Start with subtle hints and gradually escalate the supernatural occurrences as the story unfolds. This creates mystery, anticipation, and keeps players engaged. Many traditional ghost stories revolve around spirits who cannot find rest because they have unresolved issues or unfinished business. Use this theme to create compelling quests and mysteries for your players. Ghostly NPCs can provide cryptic clues or seek the player's help in completing their unfinished tasks. Imagine a ghost coming to the players asking for help. Many ghosts have a tragic backstory. Incorporate elements of betrayal, revenge, or injustice into your ghostly narrative. Players may discover dark secrets or seek to right past wrongs as they interact with these spirits. In my previous video about creating effective horror-themed adventures for your games, I talked about the importance of the environment in which the story unfolds. You should create detailed descriptions of eerie locations, dark and stormy nights, abandoned buildings, flickering candlelight, and howling winds can all contribute to a haunting atmosphere. My players were recently fighting a vampire in a chapel, and I incorporated cold winds, foul smells, and flickering candlelights. These are examples of environmental elements to influence their 5 senses and allows the player's own imaginations to heighten the feeling of unease within the location. Incorporate sound effects like ghostly whispers, eerie music, rattling chains, or sudden ominous silence to heighten tension and immerse players in the ghostly atmosphere. Another effective trick is to make the ghostly encounters personal for the players by tying them to their characters' backstories or fears. A ghostly figure resembling a loved one or a traumatic event from a character's past can be emotionally potent. Remember, when using any of the ghostly types or monsters, you must never use the name given in the game's bestiary. Instead, just describe the creature only as the players see it. Remember that ghostly encounters are rarely seen in their entirety, often appearing as ethereal figures or faint apparitions. Use this ambiguity to your advantage. Describe ghostly encounters with subtle hints, like chilling whispers, faint shadows, or fleeting glimpses. What if a ghost attacks with a sword, and the players only see a weapon floating towards them? Ghosts can interact with the physical world in unsettling ways. Objects might move on their own. Temperature might drop suddenly, or the environment might decay in their presence. These manifestations can serve as clues or a threat. If players are subjected to a haunted location for any substantial length of time, a ghost might influence the players' minds, have them experience vivid nightmares, hallucinations, or altered perceptions when interacting with these spirits. This is a tactic I've been using a lot recently, making the players unsure of how much they can trust their own senses and perhaps question their sanity. Ghosts often communicate through cryptic messages, puzzles, or riddles. Challenge your players to decipher these clues, leading them deeper into the mystery. A particularly malevolent ghost might be intelligent enough to leverage the players' relationships and group dynamics. Ghosts might exploit personal conflicts or secrets among the characters, creating internal tension within the party. What if a ghost begins telling a player lies about another character, trying to convince them it had some hidden secret and tried to turn the players against one another? On the other hand, if you have a good spirit seeking release from its earthly chains, provide opportunities for the players to help the ghost find resolution or closure, allowing them to lay the spirits to rest. Just be sure to check with your players to ensure they're comfortable with such experiences, and don't use these tactics on children. But hopefully that goes without saying. Well, I thank you for watching this video, and I hope it has been informative and helpful. If so, please remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future uploads. And thank you for being a supporter of this channel, because without you, these videos wouldn't be possible. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.